Good morning. And welcome back to worship with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura. Yay! I am the Reverend Dana Worsnop, back in this pulpit after nearly 5 months away. Months of rest, reflection, new rhythms, and even, yes, a few insights. I welcome you all, familiar faces, people who have found their way with us in the last 4.5 months, some who are here perhaps for the very first time today. And everyone, the lovely folks zooming and streaming in. Oh my gosh, it is so good to be here with you again. Yay! I can't wait to connect and reconnect and connect anew. And I do have a few brief announcements. There is a potluck celebration of coming back together again right after the service. And we can start the connecting there. And just come on by, even if this is a total surprise to you, this is a great way to get to know a pretty friendly congregation. Also, just a couple other announcements. After the service next Sunday, our Environmental Action Team is hosting a presentation about how the Inflation Reduction Act helps people and the planet. And there'll be local climate activists explaining why the IRA is a game changer for the climate and how to access its benefits yourself. Great for all who are interested in helping the earth and who like saving money. Next Sunday, after church in the sanctuary. Also letting you know that the 5th Tuesday men's group it is lovely to hear lots and lots of voices happy to be here. The 5th Tuesday men's group will meet on August 29th, which is a 5th Tuesday, in Berg Hall. There's a potluck at 6, followed by a meeting at 7. And if you have questions, there'll be somebody at the Connecting Center in Berg Hall after church to help you find out more. Invite a friend, a neighbor, a coworker. This group is open to all men. And also, it is auction season. And where we are in auction season is we're collecting items for people to bid upon. Our kickoff party will be on October 7th. It is a Mardi Gras theme, so it's going to be fun, and collecting your donations until mid-September. So there's submittal forms that are in Berg Hall. There's something on our website. And there's a link to it in UUCV This Week, which is our weekly announcement blast. If you are interested in that, all you need to do is give us your name and email address, and you can get that too. Lastly, there is a cluster camp at Camp de Venneville Pines, which is our UU camp up in the San Bernardino Mountains. And the cluster camp is with nearby UU congregations. It's going to be from September 29th to October 1st. We already have 5 or 6 or 7 people going, including me. And it'll be fun to have even more. And so look for information about signing up for that and join us. And so, now, let us arrive. Simply here, simply now, as we enter sacred space. Oh, we got a new one of these. We got a new one of these while I was gone. It doesn't, I can't sing as well with this one, so we'll just ring it.
I am Worship Associate Jim Merrill. We invite those who are Zooming or streaming in to this service to light a chalice or candle at home as Reverend Dana lights the chalice of our free faith here in the sanctuary. We begin our service this morning with these words from Marta I. Valentin. We pause this morning from the chaos of the world to reclaim the beauty within these walls that carry us through our week. We lift this community onto our shoulders with pride and grace-filled expectations for our children and for our children's children. Come, let us worship together.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Carolyn Bierke, the music director, and I welcome you here in the sanctuary and online. Our opening hymn is Morning Has Come. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in song.
All those young at heart to join us up in front for a story. Okay. Today's story is called The Antlered Ship by Dashka Slater, illustrated by the Fan Brothers. And I think that there's some really good illustrations here. The day the antlered ship arrived, Marco wondered about the wide world. He had so many questions. Why do some songs make you happy and others make you sad? Why don't trees ever talk? How deep does the sun go when it sinks into the sea? But when he posed these questions to the other foxes, they grew silent. What does that have to do with chicken stew? They would ask. So Marco went down to the harbor to see the ship. 3 deer greeted him at the gangplank. Marco wasn't surprised to learn that they were lost. We hope to hire a crew, explained Sylvia, the captain. I will join you, Marco said, and he thought to himself, I will search the seas for foxes who know the answers to my questions. A pigeon named Victor volunteered along with his entire flock. We want to have adventures, they cooed. Welcome aboard, Captain Sylvia said. We're going to an island with tall, sweet grass and short, sweet trees. But the voyage was more difficult than anyone expected. It rained. Waves crashed over the sides of the deck. The pigeons weren't used to doing such hard work, and after the first day, they went below decks and played checkers and stayed there. After days of drifting, the animals were damp and cranky. We should have stayed in the woods, Sylvia said. Deer aren't supposed to go to sea. We should have stayed in the park, added Victor. Pigeons aren't supposed to do hard labor. Marco eyed the deers and the pigeons. Foxes aren't supposed to be vegetarian, he said. Still, we must do the best we can. That evening, Marco found a recipe book in the gallery and cooked a warm and reviving stew. Then he said, "Should we look at the charts after everyone had eaten?" "We might find adventure here," said Victor. "And trouble here," said Sylvia. "But we might find the island with tall, sweet grass and short, sweet trees here. And perhaps foxes, too," thought Marco. "Foxes with answers." As they plotted their course, the wind picked up. The storm clouds thinned into marvelous swirls. "Raise the sails," Sylvia cried. And in the morning, they came to a maze of sharp rocks, each one large enough to tear the bottom of the boat. But the pigeons flew ahead, tracing a path through the shoals and sharp rocks to the safety of the open sea. The next afternoon, a pirate ship burst from behind a rocky island. "Turn over your treasure," the pirate captain bellowed, "or we'll put a hole in your helm." "Lower the antlers," Sylvia commanded. The ship clashed and crashed and smashed until the pirates turned and fled. That evening, an island appeared on the horizon, the tall, waving grasses and short, swirling trees. "We found it," Sylvia cried. "We've triumphed," Victor crowed. "We've triumphed." And Marco asked, "Do you see any foxes?" The deer grazed the grass and nibbled the trees. The pigeons told stories of their adventures to a flock of seagulls, and Marco scoured the island for foxes. But he didn't find any. Marco told Victor and Sylvia, "There are no foxes to answer my questions." "What questions?" Victor asked. Marco took a deep breath. "Do islands like being alone? And what's the best way to find a friend that you can talk to?" "The last one is an easy one," Sylvia said. "You make friends by eating together." "Oh, I disagree," said Victor. "You make friends by having adventures together." "Maybe you're both right," Marco said, "but I think you make friends by asking questions." "Well then," mused Sylvia, "should we head home tomorrow? Or should we visit another island?" And Marco wondered, is it better to know what's going to happen or to be surprised? There were so many questions to answer and so many more to ask. And like Marco the fox, Reverend Dana has come back from her last adventure with her own questions to ask us. And some of the questions are, did you learn anything about your church life during the sabbatical period? And what brought you most alive or most frustrated you during that time? And Where are we going now? And for right now, we're going to go to the RE area. So if those in the middle, and we will be pondering those questions and answering them later during the service. So if you would, those in the center aisle, stand up and form a bridge as we sing our children out.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life, we hold you in our love as you go.
You can't see it out there, but those two hang on every single word spoken. They're such a delight. Oh my gosh. Each Sunday, this congregation gives our collection away to an organization in the larger community or to funds that help people in our own church. Those who are at home have two ways to give. On Zoom, you can click the link posted in the chat or text from your phone from the number that will be up on the screen shortly. And folks who are present can text to give, or you can still write a check or give cash and drop it in a basket at the back of the sanctuary right over here after the service. Our offering today goes to the Lift Up Your Voice to End Homelessness Motel Fund, which provides a few nights respite in a motel when it will truly make a difference for someone. This fund was started in response to the need expressed by social workers, and it is used only when a case manager tells us of an urgent need. And yet, because motel costs have risen, it is frequently out of funding as it is now. Yet, in mid-July, we were able to help a mother, her 4 children, and their dog. Dog's not there, okay. All of whom were living in their car. Their social worker said it was important to get the family someplace better than a car while she worked on getting a long-term solution for them. And the motel fund was her last hope for help. And we used the last of the funds to get mom, the 4 kids and dogs into a motel for 3 days. The family got to stretch out, sleep in a bed, and shower in a safe place. And their case manager had the time she needed to find long-term housing. That's the kind of thing that this congregation supports. And so I thank you again for giving generously as you always do. We are grateful for the generosity of this congregation, which weaves a tapestry of love we call community. It wraps around us all, and it wraps out into the world with embracing people who are in need beyond our walls. Thank you.
Now is the time in our service when we hold up the great joys and sorrows that grace our lives. We place stones in water for both the celebrations and the sorrows in our hearts, making ripples that can be seen and are felt throughout our community. I invite you now to speak into the gathered community or write into the Zoom chat the names of those you wish to celebrate or memorialize, or those in need of the loving embrace of this beloved community. Reverend Dana will now place one final stone into the water for all the joys and sorrows just shared and those yet unspoken in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May we be truly grateful for all that is our life.
Please remain seated. Join me in singing We Would Be One. We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning, untwines our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
We offer a reading from Penny Hackett Evans. Each of us brings a separate truth here. We bring the truth of our own life, our own story. We don't come as empty vessels, but as full people, each with our own story and our own truth. We seek to add our truths and add to our stories. This room is rich with truth and rich with experience. All manner of people are here: needy, joyful, frightened, anxious, bored. We all bring our own truth with us. May we all recognize the truth and the story in other lives than our own. May we hear and honor the truths that we bring all together as we gather together. Together we have truths. Together we have a story. Together we are a community.
I invite you now into a time of stillness, meditation, reflection. Close your eyes if you wish, or soften your gaze. Sit quietly for some moments, noticing your breath, letting it fall into a natural rhythm. Take some moments to simply be here, now, together. A silent meditation.
Song about coming together in love, we want to apologize to Chet Powers for the tiny change we've made in the lyrics to Welcome Back, Reverend Dana. And we'd like to invite you at the very end, we'll invite you to sing along with us. So listen to the refrain so you can join in.
I see a lot of baby boomers out there, so I think you'll all know at least the refrain to this song. So let's come together and do it.
Love is but a song we sing, and fear's the way we die. You can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the wing, and you may not know why.
Come on, people now, smile on each other. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now.
Some may come and some may go with a warm embrace.
here to welcome her with love as in the past. Come on, people now, smile on each other. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on each other. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now.
When you hear the song I sing, you will understand. Listen. You hold the key to love and fear. It's all in your trembling hand. Just one key unlocks them both. It's there at your command.
Come on, people now, smile on each other. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now.
Join us 2 more times.
Come on, people now, smile on each other. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on each other. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Is that a good summary of our mission? Come on, people now. Smile on each other. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now. That's what we're trying. Try it. Try it. It's hard. It's hard. And we're together, trying together. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It is just so good to be back here in this pulpit. Thank you again, Mike Sixby, for this pulpit. To be in this pulpit with all of you good folks. Some who are such dear faces to me, and some who are so new, and I'm excited. I had a good sabbatical. It did not go entirely to plan, starting as it did with having COVID for 3 weeks. Nor do I think that it went as it was supposed to somehow anyway, as some want to say after plans fall through. My sabbatical was not particularly dramatic. I didn't have any grandly transcendent moments, though many, many lovely ones. I did have time to catch up with myself, to catch up with relationships, family, friends, neighbors, critters. I found a rhythm to life that was more easeful and measured. A rhythm that will not entirely transfer onto a full-time ministry, though there are things that I want to preserve. Did I miss the congregation and each of you? Well, not exactly. For I was able to put down church really well, it turns out. And yet, I am utterly delighted to be back and see each and every one of you. Truly and utterly delighted. Really, that's how I know I miss you, because golly, it's good to see you. How I do love you, this church, and this ministry. Yay. And that's all I'm going to say about my sabbatical. At least for right now. Because I don't want to rush back in and start answering all sorts of questions, filling the air with my voice, says the minister at the beginning of her homily. You see, I kind of did that after the first sabbatical I took from the congregation I served in Oregon back in 2010. And this time, I don't want to rush in and pick up right where I left off. And I do want to start by asking you all some questions, listening to you first. I am not entirely the same minister who went on sabbatical last March. You are not entirely the same congregation I left behind 4+ months ago. Who are you now? Who are we now? Let's find out. For we don't come as empty vessels, but as full people, each with our own story and our own truth. We seek to add to our truths and add to our stories, which is what we've all been doing these last months, separately, now together. This room is rich with truth, rich with experience. Let's revel in it. What was your sabbatical experience? How will we come together again? One way, perhaps not to come together, is illustrated by my experience at my very first year of professional ministry as the interim minister in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. They were a church in a bit of a pickle. For complicated reasons, they were having trouble getting someone to serve as an interim minister. Partly because most Canadian UU ministers don't want to serve as interims in Canada because that would then disqualify them for being called to that pulpit. We don't have a whole bunch of congregations in Canada. And it seems that not a whole bunch of American interim ministers wanted the hassle of serving in another country. But I, just 2 years before, had done my internship in Toronto, Ontario, so I knew the drill. In fact, at my second time at the border going into Alberta, I did know more than the border agent about my immigration status. I was on a rarely used religious visa, meaning I could only work in the church, nowhere else. And I had overheard one official in Toronto calling it a missionary visa. And so, yes, I have twice been a UU missionary in Canada. By the time I arrived, the good, intrepid, devoted folks in Calgary had been lay-led for nearly 18 months, holding their beloved church together almost entirely by themselves. At one point in this, they thought they had a minister, and they were very excited. But that fell through at the last minute. And the dedicated and loyal lay people regrouped and carried on for a whole year more. Me? I had passed the Ministerial Fellowship Committee in January of 2002, too late for our regular search process. But would I consider going back to Canada for a one-year interim? Why, yes, I would. So that's how I, a very green, wet behind the ears, fellowshipped but not yet ordained minister, ended up serving my very first church. They were so tired and so grateful to have a minister again. after 18 months, that they looked at me, a smiling, kind, inexperienced kid of 44, and said, "Here, you take this." Woof. And I took it all up. Wow, what a deal. And they listened to me and loved me and did most of what I suggested and were inordinately kind about my missteps, which were thankfully not wildly serious. And I tell you all this to name and hopefully that we could avoid the temptation for a woomph like that. A temptation, which is a temptation for all of us. You have done an amazing job holding the church together while I was on sabbatical. Blessedly, the church had the resources to have an experienced minister in my absence, and you are good people and we have an excellent staff. And it all, I don't know how it went. You tell me, but the words I'm hearing are mostly it went pretty darn well. And I am very happy to take back up the mantle of this ministry. And yet this return gets to be for us all an inflection point, an opportunity to see ourselves separately and together more clearly. I have had the time to consider my ministry and how to sustain it. What am I good at? What am I called to? How do I want to minister now? And after that reflection, I am intentionally not diving back in or woomphing. You are, I have seen, eager to hear about my sabbatical, what I did, what I learned, and I will actually let you know. Actually, we'll have an in-person and online event where I'm going to make a presentation with photos and videos, which will be on Friday, August 25th, 2 Fridays from now at 6 p.m., potluck presentation. And then on September 10th, actually September 17th, I am going to preach on what I learned on my sabbatical. But that's a little time for us to answer some questions, to figure some stuff out. We rush through our lives all the time. We feel like we have to be productive and get things done. And I learned a different way of being. And can we? Should we? How will we? And until then, I mostly really want to hear from you about how the sabbatical time went. Lily talked about I have some questions about this, and Lily talked about them during her story. And I'm hoping that these questions can guide our adventures ahead. Did you learn anything about your church life during the sabbatical time? What brought you most alive and or most frustrated you? And where are we going now? What next? So, though I put church down well, I also carried you with me, thanks to Reverend Carolyn, because on my send-off Sunday, she had folks in the church write wishes for me on sloths. Was this perfect? Campers and surfboards. I read through them all multiple times. I rotated ones that were on my refrigerator, and I carried a few with me on the trips that I took. So I carried you with me the whole time. And I just want to share a couple of examples of what you wrote. And some were signed and some weren't, so I'm just going to do all these anonymously. Appreciate the flowers that all the rain will bring. Lots of giggling, love, and joy. Rest well, eat all the food, dance to all the songs. Most of all, relax and know we are in good hands. And then this one I appear to have done pretty well at. Reverend Dana, I wish you no congregational thoughts. Be free. And now I want to give you some time to do some more writing on little cards. To think about your own sabbatical experiences and how we're coming back together, and maybe an answer, the beginnings of answers to some of these questions. So you will find a card and a pen under your seat, and I invite you to think about these questions for a bit and write an answer on the card. And Zoomers, you can write in the chat, and we're going to preserve the chat and we'll transfer them onto cards later. And then I'm going to grab a few and read a couple, but what we'll do is we'll just have you drop them in baskets after the service in either the doors on your way out to our fun potluck or celebration. But we're just, this is just the beginning of some thinking about what we're going to do together. And if you're new, think about what you'd like to see, what you're hoping for in the congregation. And we'll post them and use them in all kinds of different ways going forward. And so take your card right on the front of it, because if we post them on a bulletin board, we'll see it. And write an answer or something that comes to you. And just take some time. Carolyn is going to serenade us. And did you learn anything about your church life during the sabbatical time? And what did you learn? That's another good way of, because you can answer that one yes, couldn't you? Yeah. What brought you most alive and or most frustrated you, and where are we going now? So some of you probably didn't have answers pop into your brains right away. There'll be time, we're going to keep holding these questions, and we'll collect the rest. Here are just a few beginnings of, I just grabbed people who handed them to me. I learned again that the church is the people. Loved Reverend Carolyn's presence. Forward, always forward in love and generosity. How then shall, so some of you are answering questions with questions, which is terribly Unitarian of you, and Universalist. So how then shall we live? Always asking. Another question with answered with a question. Where are our families and teens? This is a good question for us to be holding. Thank you. This is just somebody who is a newbie, and this is their 5th visit. And thank you. Welcome, new people everywhere. I also saw some of you writing books. This is good. Or at least essays. So I learned that our church membership, due to various leaders and people donating their time, does a very good job on our own. Ahoo! Really enjoyed Reverend Carolyn Price at Sunday service, and someone returning to UCV after a few years, and looking forward to journeying into the future with kindness, compassion, and love. Onward. There's a second onward. Yay. Thank you. And we're going to keep asking these questions. This is not the first time. You don't have to be done. Anyway, So I thank you for starting this journey back together. And we will be considering these questions going forward, many settings in the church. And may they guide us coming together in love, getting together in love. In the words of Marta Valentin, shared earlier, may we together lift this community onto our shoulders with pride and grace-filled expectations going forward. And toward the goal of no one thing for any of us. I will tell you, and this is part of what I learned on the sabbatical, and part of what I learned about how we all can be together, living our lives a little bit differently, perhaps. I am deliberately moving back into this ministry at a measured pace. People have been kindly understanding about how I'm re-entering, saying things like, "You must be swamped." And yet, I am really trying hard not to be swamped. That's kind of the point. Swamping, thing, could so easily just counteract the gift of the sabbatical rest and obscure the lessons that I did learn, which I will share with you soon enough. And so I want us to not rush and woomph. And so in the aim of for no swamping or woomphing, in the last, I will tell you, that is what I'm aiming for. And in the last 2 weeks, they have been mostly really satisfyingly full, but not overwhelming. They were overfull a time or two because this is a human community, but mostly they have been full, and I have been grateful for your patience and your kindness as we figure this out together. And as Lily, when I brought this up at the staff meeting, our first staff meeting, Lily asked the question, so what's the rush? Maybe we don't have to rush. And that may become another question we ask each other over these next months. So what's the rush on this? Is there really a rush? Maybe. And then we rush. But if not, maybe we don't. What a concept. So how has this been going so far? I've told you a little bit. But mostly, all I can say right now is, so far, so good. And it's all going to be a dance, and so let us dance. Amen. And may it be so. And I invite you to join me in prayer. Holy beingness of many names and no name at all, easeful, measured rhythms and spirit of life that dwells within and among and beyond us this day and always. We hold in our hearts the people of Maui and Lahaina. We here know some of the shock and sorrow and devastation they feel. May it fill our hearts, and may we find ways to help them with our compassionate experience too. And may we breathe and slow down, finding the rhythms of life and love that feed and sustain. May we ask and listen and share our lives with grace and intention. May we not rush to answer. May we continue to keep hearts open to the questions that just keep coming in a life. And may we carry ever on in kindness. Amen. And blessed be.
Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing Let It Be a Dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let it dance inside we heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you.
dancing.
Please join me in reading the words on the screen as we prepare to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. Those we carry into our lives until we are together again.
Okay, so when we're done, I have just a few words of benediction, and then everybody, if you have a cash a check, put it in the basket at the back, and then let's go have a party. Yeah, join us for a potluck and celebration. Everyone is invited. So I leave you with these words again from Martha Valentine. May we together lift this community onto our shoulders with pride and grace-filled expectations. Together we have truths. Together we have a story. Together we are a community. So go forth in love. Go forth in peace. May it be so. And is there cake? All right, let's have some cake.